Well, Patrick Cook here. So thanks for joining me in session number 21 of our fun with Mandelbulb mutations. Now, we have a pretty successful morphing effect here with 4 keyframes. All of these keyframes were made only with MutaGen, and I did not take and manipulate any of the formula properties up here. These 4 keyframes are straight from MutaGen, all right, and that's what we're trying to accomplish here. Now, let's do this. I want to talk about some other rules of thumb here, things that don't work. It does not work to have a formula slot up here. These are the slots. To have a formula slot exchanged, added, or removed between keyframes. Doesn't work. Mandelbulb does not understand, I should say the Mandelbulb animation code does not understand the changing of the formula from one keyframe to the next. Doesn't work. It doesn't even work without MutaGen involved. All right. The animation code of the Mandelbulb3D does not smoothly interpolate between 2 keyframes where there are formula changes. Now, when I say formula changes, I'm talking about formula assignments. All right. It just doesn't work. Whether you do it manually or with MutaGen or whatever, it just doesn't work. All right. Now, obviously, we're talking about the modification of the graphic in terms of animation. We're not talking about camera movement now. We're only talking about the change of the graphic being animated. All right. Now, also, I have found that the changing of the Julia mode is hit or miss. It might work or it might not. Now, we talked about what this Julia mode is, so I'm sure you understand that. Okay. I also, in my experience, I have found that the Mandelbulb3D animation algorithm code does not handle the interpolation of the iteration count between 2 keyframes. Again, we're not talking about movement of the camera. We're talking about the modification, the animation of the graphic itself. Okay? All right. So basically, what I just said in the last 2 minutes is that these options, exchange, add, and remove formulas, do not work. Mandelbulb does not know how to interpolate between keyframes where there is a formula assignment change. In my experience, it does not work well with changes in the Julia mode. All right, and it doesn't work well with the iteration count between 2 keyframes. All right, so that's why when I was demonstrating this, I had all of these others turned off. There was a reason for that. It wouldn't have worked. All right. However, the Mandelbulb3D code or algorithm does work well with changes in property values within the same formula. It does work well. The animation algorithm handles changes in the property values well, as long as those property values are not too large from one keyframe to the other, in which case it may actually flip or jerk or spike. All right. So you want to keep when you're animating a graphic change, you want to try to keep your property values the change in your property values low. Okay. All right. So let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's push this back up. Let's get over to generation 1. Let's push this back up into the editor. That's our base. That's our integer power. Okay, default properties. Okay. All right. I'm going to go all the way over here. I'm going to clear all the previous generations, nice and clean. All right. Click on the, okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate to you why it doesn't work. So I'm going to just keep the property values minimum here, and I'm going to allow the mutagen to actually exchange and add and remove formulas. Let's mutate that. All right. Now, this is our base integer power. It's right up here. One of these mutations has got multiple formulas assigned to it. Probably this one right here. So I'm going to send this up to the main editor. Now, here, keep in mind that I do have, we can get rid of all this here. There is my base. That's my base fractal. I'm going to insert that just to prove it. Okay. All right, I'm going to send this up to the main editor. Let's take a look at it. Ah, yes, good. I have the integer power formula was taken away, and it added this formula in formula slot number 1, and it added this formula in slot number 2. It's still alternate hybrid mode. No problem there. All right, all I'm doing here is I'm demonstrating that the Mandelbulb animation algorithm does not play well when you go from a keyframe to the next keyframe and there's a formula assignment change. All right, so let's push that into keyframe number 2. Now, just to keep it so that we can actually see it a little bit slower, I'm going to make the keyframe, the frames in between, 100. All right. All right. Now, this is going to be an important test. What I expect to see here is that the Mandelbulb3D animation algorithm or code will animate that first keyframe, boop, 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 and then come to a point and suddenly run up on the second keyframe, and then we see a formula change, and it will instantly flip to the next keyframe. It won't handle going from one formula to 2 formulas. Let's see if I'm right. All right, so let's preview that. There's our first keyframe. First keyframe, first keyframe, first keyframe. Now, all right, we're already in trouble. And then suddenly flip. Okay, flip. All right, so what this is doing here is it's demonstrating whether you use the mutagen or not, or you do this manually, the Mandelbulb3D animation algorithm or code does not handle the change of formula assignments between keyframes. It doesn't know how to interpolate or blend. All right, so what we're seeing here is an example of something that doesn't work. When when 2 keyframes have different formula constructs, the Mandelbulb3D animation does not work. That may be true for the Julia mode as well. All right, it may be true for the iteration count as well. All right, so I think we can conclude this by saying that when using the MutaGen to create keyframes, you can get some pretty good results, but you have to stay with only modifying the property values of a formula and the small value changes, all right, and that modifying or changing the formula assignments between keyframes simply doesn't work. And that the Julia mode and the iteration count may not work. Okay? So success with the MutaGen tool to create keyframes, you can have very, very good success if you stay within the capabilities of the Mandelbulb animation algorithm. And it handles fine. It handles formula property value changes, but does not handle formula assignment changes between keyframes. Okay. All right. So that's pretty advanced stuff. I'll tell you what. Why don't we end this session here? And when we come back, I think we are in a position where we can kind of wrap this whole thing up. We'll do a review, we'll do a summary, I'll give you some tips, some things to remember working with the MutaGen. And I think we can pretty much wrap up this tutorial series, which I hope has been very informative for you and has given you another tool, the MutaGen, that you can use to make some really, really cool Mandelbulb 3D graphics and even animations. Okay? I'll see you in the next session, and we'll continue it from there.